my lovely friends. My name is Jon Sleigh. My pronouns are he, him. I am a freelance learning curator. Jatinda very kindly invited me onto this project to design the experience that people had living well with dementia at the Tower of London. Kim and Jatinda have beautifully and detailed the way in which we explored this from a practical perspective. I'm going to explore it from an emotional and social perspective. What does it mean to be here? What does it mean to find yourself here and express yourself here? I work across the country, and I am the best thing to come out of Birmingham since Ozzy Osbourne. It's not true. The Tower of London is beautiful and powerful. We are told as a UNESCO heritage site, it's one of the key dividers or definers that show us who we are in this nation, what it is to be part of this nation, to occupy this space or to visit this space. My job was to reverse engineer that, particularly from the perspectives of people living well with dementia. One of the things I first encounter is the lexicon with people and how they express ideas of living well with dementia, living with dementia. I'm oftentimes encounter people who say, oh, are you suffering from? Are you suffering from? Suffering is an incredibly subjective and painful term to use. I encounter it numerous times. I meet people that are living well. I meet people that in that moment are the best they are ever going to be with me and are enjoying life at the present. One of the earlier sharings that I really picked up on and I thought was absolutely beautiful is the notion of reminiscence. Is the Tower about reminiscence? Is it solely about history? No, because this is a living, working palace full of children and schools and cats and Deliveroos. It's now. The past may be beautiful and useful, and reminiscence is a very powerful tool. But what if your past wasn't beautiful? What if parts of your past are incredibly painful to access? Just for all of us, and asking that question, let me take you back to that space. It might not be a comfortable or consensual space to go back into. What I can do is make today special. What I can do is make today shine for you. And what I can do is associate today with an emotion that you carry through, an emotion that is more useful and powerful to you than knowing exactly when Henry VIII built the weather vane on top of the building. The setting was using nature, and the palace, in its most remarkable and beautiful state, is something quite elite. I've got more in common with the people that clean the floors than lived here. It's incredible when you think about this as that 1% of history. You're trying to find emotional commonality with kings and queens from 500 years ago that had their heads cut off. I'm more interested in how the people in this room feel right now. What's more real to me? These giant figures from history that are incredibly useful and powerful. But my job is to find ourselves in this space. How can I occupy this space? One of the tenets of the work I do, and one of the strongest things I believe, is sites like this need people more than people need these sites. We are told that sites like this are the apex of culture, the most important things we encounter. You're the most important things I'll ever encounter. The people in this room. Sites like this learn and grow, exist, and develop as a result of the hearts and minds that occupy it. That's where my time should be, not on the reverence of the past. What's beautiful about this site is imagining it from the perspective of nature. You don't expect dirty, sweaty, jostly London to be a haven for nature, but with Superbloom and with the other natural elements around, it's one of the few things that we've all got in common, access to nature. My nan brought me up to believe that we all live under one sky. And it's a really beautiful thought when you think about that. Trying to find things in common with people across neurodivergent spectrums at different journeys, finding themselves, expressing themselves, loving themselves and who they are and where they are. Nature is one of the few things we've got in common. So I reverse engineered the story of the tower from that perspective, using the moat that surrounds the tower. We mentioned Kim as leader of the cesspit, which is a wonderful job title. One of the things that I love about the moat is that for 1,000 years, it was one of London's largest and smelliest compost heaps. Everything that was wasteful in the castle was thrown into the moat. 1,000 years of history building up, not of grand kings or queens, crowns and palaces, but real people eating, loving, bits of the building falling off. Real Londoners that encountered this site. So I used the archaeology that was found in there. And what I've done is, afterwards, if you've got some time to compete with your sandwiches, I've set up the original object handling box over there. So there's 1,000 years of object history that you can touch if you'd like to. Nature is a beautiful and special moment, particularly when you consider the residents of the tower, one of the most famous being the dashing Sir Walter Raleigh. I've got a crush on him. One of the things that I love about Walter Raleigh is that we know about the grand adventurer. We know about Raleigh sailing the seven seas. We know about Raleigh as the pirate. What we don't necessarily know about is Raleigh incarcerated in this building and the journey that he went on. He loses his liberty as a result of being imprisoned by King James I. What's fascinating is that he has these palatial lodgings in comparison to some of the other people that are occupying the palace. But still, this is a sizable loss of liberty. The life that he lived is gone, and gone permanently. He will never return to that. He ultimately becomes executed. What's fascinating about Raleigh is that he turns to nature and he builds a garden next to the bloody tower to cultivate, to grow. He plants the seeds that he's collected from across the oceans and across different continents and times. At one stage, that tiny little garden was one of the most exclusive and expansive in the whole of this country. Historic royal palaces have lovingly recreated that garden that you can touch and smell, pull leaves from, touch, feel, be part of that garden. That's where I took people on this journey. It's so important to be around the tower, but finding the personal, finding a real person that was struggling, a person that was struggling with their identity, how they communicated with the world, with loss of liberty, with a rapidly changing life scale of who they were. He turned to nature. Therefore, I use that as a vehicle, an analogy for working with people with living well with dementia to explore how their lives were changing, both in really beautiful and positive ways, but also in really challenging ways. Walter Raleigh and his garden was incredibly special, as was the notion of choice and consensual choices. We built this session around the idea of what would you like to do next? Choose your own adventure. One of the things I encounter sometimes is that people, particularly programming and working with people living well with dementia, create these elaborate programs and events. And at 37 minutes past, I will serve you tea. And at 42 minutes past, we will have this session. We'll get there when we get there. Do you want to go here? Do you want to go next? I need a wee. I'll see you in a minute. There was such a range of choice and that constant checking in with people. Do you want to continue? Do you want to learn more? Do you want to go to this space? What would you like to do next? People surrender so much control, I would suggest, when they access heritage sites and history. Reimagining that back and giving people space. For me, it's not about the removal of history. It's not about the removal of content. It's about populating it with emotion instead. One of the things that I loved about the feedback that we had from this project was that people weren't following the storytelling in terms of the people, the spaces, the dates. They were following it in terms of the expression on my face. They were following it in terms of my body language. They were following it in terms of the energy going up, the energy going down. It was incredibly accessible for people on so many levels to follow that storytelling. To slavishly follow the story of Sir Walter Raleigh would be uncomfortable and unkind. To follow it in terms of an emotional journey was truthful and honest. What I loved about this was the sensory aspect, that at every point the senses were changing. We deliberately populated it with multiple senses and multiple access points to those senses at different times. Do you want to smell? Do you want to touch? Do you want to taste? Do you want to sit and listen? All of that was available, as was an object handling kit, which I brought with you. not just telling the stories of everyday Londoners. Hold that history in your hand. Feel the textures. Don't worry that you're going to drop something. Don't worry that you're going to lose something. Don't worry that things are too precious to touch. You're the most precious thing in this room, not the objects. What I loved about this was devising and building it based on everyday items. It's not just about elite history. I got this off eBay for 15 quid. It's a Viewmaster and one from, I think it's 1948. The original images of what this place looked like as they were dismantling the armament from the Second World War. I've got that for you to play with. I can tell elaborate stories, or I can immerse people in the senses of those stories and let them have their go themselves. I used to do that as well. Yeah, mine was Thundercats. Memory boxes were incredibly important, as was the emotion associated with this. One of the things that I was very keen to get across was that audiences aren't hard to reach. It's institutions and people like us are hard to reach. Proportionately, there are very few of us compared to how many visitors access this site and how many people are living well with dementia potentially want to explore that journey with us. We can't always be there for you. We can create legacy that is there for you. Therefore, everything was designed with how much can you take home? How much can you make yourself? How much can you populate? Can you make a box and fill it with the sights, scents and sounds? I won't always be with you as a storyteller. You won't always have access to this amazing palace. But that box could be under your chair if you need it as a storytelling tool for yourself or others. Making sure that the support staff and the relatives in the room were encompassed within the storytelling was so important to me, because everybody is having an equal experience in that room. Dementia-friendly access is access for everybody. It's sensory, it's kind, and it's immersive. Therefore, everyone should have the same access to it. So building the memory box, making active choices, expanding those choices, decorating, popularising, personalising, taking something of a giant piece of history and emphasising that this historical site and 1,000 years of history substantially changes by everybody that accesses it. Their lived experience, their emotion doesn't just ricochet off the surface. They've changed the Tower of London for the better by being in the Tower of London. A reminder of that two-way street. Associating a smell and a touch was really useful. I chose the smell of lavender as the scent of this experience. Sometimes when I'm working with people, they retain huge tracts of information that I, as a storyteller, completely forget when I go home at the end of the day and have a glass of wine and watch telly. What's exceptional about this, though, is that sometimes people don't retain any of that information whatsoever, but they do retain the information and the emotion of somebody smiling at them in a tough week or month, or the inertia sometimes of the challenges that we face. To be in this fantasy palace, to have the attention to slow down a UNESCO heritage site that accommodates thousands, for you to sit, think, respond, and have someone to talk to on your pace, on your time, is priceless. Associating that with a smell is really beautiful. Lavender was the smell because lavender grows in the moat. It's a really simple but elegant way of cementing that relationship, and to take that forward. It cost me £5 to buy a bunch of lavender. It's a day in the life for me as somebody that does this for a living. It's a memory that can change people's lives outside of the tower. A summation of the experience that I had and some of the points I would put across would be, why should I trust this place? Earned engagement and trust comes through actions. When you encounter the tower, Jatinda very beautifully said, you encounter something that's potentially incredibly violent. Consider the tower from neurodiverse perspectives. It's a huge palace with a massive gift shop. I'm going to see the crows, I'm going to see all of this. Or it's a massive stone wall where there's armed men with guns walking around and there's people constantly checking who I am and telling me where to go. It can be intimidating and challenging on a number of reasons. Therefore, don't just walk through that door because I told you to walk through that door. Walk through that door because we have built a joyous experience for you, that I've spent the time building a relationship with you and being with that relationship from start to finish, where I can say, if you go through this next door, something amazing is going to happen. Don't know what, but it's good. Create space, time and pace and choice for expression. Deciding what people want, how they want it, and what their journey is going to be is not only prescriptive, it's unkind. What would you like to do today in this amazing palace? Sometimes it's I just want to sit on a bench and hold somebody's hand and talk. That's beautiful, and that's way more important than any tour I could ever give you. People make places, collections and communities need them more than they do. This place comes alive with people. It's not about reverence, it's about use as positive tools for our wellness and advocating who we are. Honour the present and make it special. Within elite history narratives, where am I represented? It's escapism to be in this palace, but simultaneously I don't want to lose myself in this palace. Where can I hold space? Where can I see myself? Where can I see my lived experience? Meta-narratives bind us together. Nature is a great one that we all have in common. We'll experience it in completely different ways, but like it or not, we are exposed to nature in some way. Heritage only starts the dialogue, people populate it. Building the memory boxes and letting people feed back to the palace how they feel, change the palace, change how it organises and shifts itself is vital, because we're advocating not just for ourselves, but everybody else. Actively create tools for legacy away from the heritage experience. I made sure that with the memory boxes and all the resources, they could act independently. I built them without selfishness so that they wouldn't need to be facilitated. They could be used in any way they wish to. Engage with everyone equally. Enriching family and support workers is vital as those living well with dementia. Making sure that everybody leaves that space with a smile on their face was my absolute goal, because that energy moves around the space. I say that as a carer, I say that as a professional, I say that as someone that took part in this. Oh, if you've got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If you don't feel comfortable asking in this forum, you could ask me on Twitter or you could email me. I'm so sorry to bulldoze through an amazing summer in 10 minutes. Thank you so much for your time there.